As we dive back into your deeper Dharma and the next phase, your next iteration of becoming, we're going to digest your yearning and regret history. I'm going to read a little bit from Master of You on this, because I find just so much around understanding how to alchemize regret that's not that well understood. I've been coaching people for about 20 years. And I find that, some people can mine their regret for gems and really turn it into the fodder for the next phase of their life. And other people don't and really have a resistance against it. Some people will say, like, I have no regrets. And I find that while that may be true, sometimes the subconscious hasn't really processed something. So I'll read a little bit about this, and then I'll read the exercise. The exercise takes 30 to 40 minutes. So I would just plan on, as you're doing this lesson, we'll get it on done. All right, page 11. The evolutionary efficiency of alchemizing regret. Have you ever met someone who says they have no regrets? Did you believe them? Does that perspective serve their evolution or encourage a level of complacency? I found that when we deny or bury our regrets, we short shift digesting a regret into a lesson learned. Your regrets hold wisdom. Befriend your regrets. When you mine your regrets, you refine ore into shiny gold insights that light your path. If you're blocked from your next purpose, your next identity, you'll definitely want to mine your regrets. You digest your regrets through reflection, which unearths the deep longing to fulfill your core needs of connection, intimacy, and personal evolution. This spurs self-compassion. When you mine your regrets, you can assimilate your prior ignorance in order to grow your wisdom. Digested regrets shine the light on matter. Digested regrets shine the light on smarter actions based on what you know now. By digesting or mining regrets, you get to see the common traps you might inadvertently yet repetitively set for yourself. You become less likely to regret the next chapter of your future as you hone your intuition, which might have sensed previous traps a mile away. At the end of the day, after I turn out the light, I replay my day. As I'm celebrating the good things that happened, I also mine for regrets. When I replay a regret, even a small one, such as, I wish I hadn't said that, I rewrite the memory with what would have been a better response, such as, I could have said this. This small rewrite in my memory generates a better neural pathway that paves the way for a smarter future, a more integrated gut, mind, and heart. It dissolves regressed patterns such as emotional eating or drinking or smoking. This new pathway keeps me from dwelling on past regressions because I'm putting my hands on the steering wheel of tomorrow by digesting and learning from today. Taking a few minutes at the end of the day to digest regret rewires the thinking patterns. For me, often the insights give way to actions I need to take the next day to live a more aligned life. Plus, the benefits of better neural pathways with this short end-of-day practice increases with time. Neuroplasticity is the ability of your brain to change throughout your life. A Psychology Today article explains the connection between neuroplasticity and personal evolution. It may be possible to carve out a fresh and unworn path for your thoughts to travel upon. One could speculate that this process opens up the possibility to reinvent yourself and move away from the status quo. It's possible to update your brain and nervous system to work smarter by being more informed about who you are becoming. In this next exercise, you'll digest your past to generate power and direction for your future. Your power comes from transforming regret into lessons learned. You'll write your yearning and regret history to discover your patterns and your common traps. Through assimilating yearnings and regrets, you'll uncover essential weaknesses you can transform by turning them into strengths. In the end, you'll have more insight into the direction you're heading. In the end, you'll have more insight and you'll have alchemized your view of the past and rewired your memories so that your past becomes even more progressive and positive for your future. The point isn't to dwell on regret, but rather to transform emotion-laden regrets into intelligent fuel for your fire of your growth. Marshall Goldsmith points out in his book Triggers, Becoming the Person You Want to Be, that if we embrace regret, including the pain that comes from facing how we failed ourselves or hurt the people we love with our past choices, it becomes, quote, one of the most powerful feelings guiding us to change, end quote. Goldsmith reminds us that no one is exempt from this humbling emotion. Within regret is a sacred opportunity to catalyze buried emotion into dynamic learning. All right, so here's the exercise. You'll want some either paper, or if you like to type, you can type. It might be helpful to draw. Digest your yearning and regret history. Set your timer for 30 minutes. Sketch your history visually using stick figures, words, or icons. Start with your earliest childhood memories of regret. When did you first experience regret as a child or young adult? What choices led to that emotion? Assess what your circumstances were and consider how you got there. Notice, do you have compassion for yourself at that age? How does it feel to recognize or recognize your regret? What were your deepest longings as a teenager? How did you fail yourself or someone else? What did you long for in relationships? What did you envision for your future? What was important to you that you didn't honor with your actions? Were there any buried treasures in there that later resurfaced? What regrets do you have from your teen years? As you go through this exercise, you might feel your brain rewiring your history. You might notice an improved version or neural pathway of memory. Perhaps forgotten dreams are resurfacing. In reintegrating your history, you are becoming more whole, interconnected. You are maturing your cellular integrity and updating your neural pathways, memory, by processing your yearnings and regrets. Keep going. What happened to you as a young adult? What were your great disappointments? Under disappointment, you can discover a goldmine of yearning. What did your family, friends, or coworkers not see in you? What did you hide? What do you regret about your own behaviors or decisions during that time? Now, notice how owning your regret points the way to core personal lessons learned and triggers your desire to do better. Take a moment to honor what regret can teach you when you pause to notice its intelligence to steer your future. Regret hones your intuition, generates waves of compassion for yourself as a learning, caring, and ever-evolving human being. Transformation, or your personal evolution, is accelerated by self-compassion. In this process, recognize your efforts to learn, to evolve, and to shapeshift by owning your experiences and absorbing your lessons learned. In this way, you are recovering the reflection and closure part of the neural cycle, where the gems of your future are hidden. Be bold and gentle in owning the good, the bad, and the ugly in your history. Simultaneously, you are expanding your capacity for self-compassion, as well as empathy and connectivity in your core relationships. When you become more whole, you empower those in your life to become more whole. Keep going. What are your regrets from your mature adult experiences? What are your yearnings? See the cycles. Notice your yearnings without shame or judgment. You'll notice as soon as you move through this book that more memories will surface. Memories will manifest regrets and underlying yearnings. If you stop to add them to your sketch, you will digest them. You are updating your records, rewriting your hard drive, mobilizing your power of Tarpaka Kapha. In the process, you will more completely and accurately know yourself and the nature of your next purpose. So I just want to talk a little bit about this. So press pause if you're, if you're in the doing of press pause, and then you can press play again when you're on the other side of it. So like I said before, like I've coached people that have a real resistance to doing this, to mining regret, to digesting regret. The more we do it, the more we see that like we get good at doing it. We get good at the iterations. At the end of the day, to look back and say, what went well? What would I do different next time? And there's a regret in that. To rewrite it, to see yourself in certain situations, that's the rewriting of the memory. That's the writing of a stronger neural pathway that you're going to want to follow, you'll more naturally follow in the future. It becomes easier to catch ourselves like in the act of changing behaviors. And that's really what we're looking for, to change our outcomes. When I was reading this, I was thinking about, what really stood out was in my 20s. And I've recently been seeing pictures of myself from about 18 to maybe late 20s, early 30s. And I really carried a lot of what in Ayurveda we call ama, or undigested food in the tissue of my body. I maybe was, had like 10 to 15 pounds of ama, like just like excess. So I wasn't like grossly overweight at all. I was very active. I was very athletic, but I had this layer over me, and I didn't like it. And I didn't ask for help. I didn't ask for help with, directly. In many ways, like I wasn't really willing to do what it would take to shed that layer. And so there's a bit of regret that like in that sort of prime of my life from 18 to 28, that I didn't look and feel my best. Now, if I can be with that, and I can be with that compassionately, I can say, well, I was in yoga school, I was in Ayurveda school, I was really trying to help myself. I was trying to do a lot of things. I was detoxing and starting to learn that. And so there's a component in regret of really meeting who you were at that time with compassion, and getting really curious. Like for me to be really curious of like, why was I holding on? Like, why wasn't I able to find my real body weight? And in there, I can find that there was self-loathing, right? And now this is another level of regret, but it's also an insight that helps me now help other people, because in my career, that's something that is very applicable to be able to name that. So this is part of that digestion process around regret, is you can become more useful. You can use your regret, process it, and now you're more useful now and into the future. And that's where more opportunity starts to arise. Oh, there's an opportunity now for me to own that for a certain segment of my life. I had a lot of self-loathing. I really was not comfortable in my own skin. I didn't like how I looked. I didn't like how I felt. And I could create a course on that. I could coach people on that. I could turn that into other opportunities. And that's usually the nature of regret, is it starts to tie some of the strings together. And there's just a ton of power in taking the time to do that. So the other component here is you can ask other people, what are your regrets? And this can be something that you do over a cup of tea or on a walk, or you just start to ask people more about regret, and you will see that you might get a variety of different responses, but it also might be a way to bring conversation much deeper. Now, the last thing I want to mention on regret is you can look back at the last iteration you've gone through in Master of You and look particularly at that and ask, what do I regret? And just looking at the last phase and knowing that as you digest those regrets, turn them into lessons learned that you can apply into the next iteration of your seasonal milestones, of your ideal calendar, of how you're using time, space, of who you're becoming next.